What? Who does that? I mean, no, you don't have to do that. Please don't look at me so resolved. I won't give you any grief just because of a shared name. Hey, wait, hey, I decided to tell him my name was Lahan's brother. Falling leaves, clear skies. There was some kind of commotion at the main house, but I'm busy. Harvesting my soybeans takes priority. Autumn frost, clear skies. Uncle Lakan is here all the time trying to see Maomao, and it's obnoxious. I'm amazed the old doctor can stand entertaining him. Miss Chu said Maomao had gone to the port town to do some shopping. That would make sense for a few days, but now it's been 10 days since we saw her. For that matter, I don't see Miss Chu either. Plus, the mood at the main house seems pretty grim. I'm sure something must have happened, but what good would it do for me to say anything? Maybe if I had the power or capacity, but I've never had much talent for those sorts of things. Sticking my nose in only seems likely to get me in trouble. I think I'd gain more from thinking about what to do with the soybeans I've harvested. Should I just eat them? Should I process them somehow, or grow them into bean sprouts? There are so many things I could do. It was early winter with cloudy skies. Something is wrong with Uncle Lakan. I mean, something has always been wrong with him, but he has been acting especially strange lately. I finally found the moon prints, but for some reason my uncle was there too, berating Hulan. Hey, uncle, why are you burning those papers? He is scary. He is scary in a totally different way from my dad or grandfather. Heck, Hulan, it is just as scary how your expression never changes. Wait, what? Why are you sitting down on the burning papers and bowing your head? Geez, Burns, you are going to burn yourself. Water, we need some water over here. It was the 12th month with clear skies. I gather that the reason Uncle Lakan was so angry at Hulan was because he did something to entrap Maomao. I can see why he would be upset. And to think, he is just an old guy who is normally no more than a bit of a nuisance, as long as you do not antagonize him. He is also quite a loser. Something is definitely up with Hulan. His motivations are beyond my comprehension. It seems he decided his older brother was in the way of making the Moon Prince the leader of the Western capital. So Hulan decided to eliminate him. I cannot believe he plotted all that with a grin on his face. I thought he was just a nice guy helping with chores. Well, I take it all back. I do not need a little brother like that. I would even take Lahan over him. Chill, cold, clear skies. Maomao and the others are finally back, but Miss Chu is in bad shape. What happened? She cannot even use her right arm anymore. It is a real tragedy. Year-end, clear skies. Miss Chu has set up camp in the medical office, claiming she is convalescing. I grant that her injuries are serious, but she is really just using that as cover to lounge around and do nothing. I feel bad for the friendly old doctor. He seems to spend all his time taking care of her. I guess they are finally going to decide who gets to run the Western capital. It won't be the Moon Prince, but apparently a man named Shikyo will. He is Master Jayakuo's oldest son. He is also, incidentally, Hulan's older brother and the father of that obnoxious brat Jayakujan. Are we really going to be okay with this guy? New spring, clear skies. I saw Xiaohong today. I thought Jayakujan was bullying her again, but on closer inspection I saw Xiaohong do something very unexpected. She slapped Jayakujan, taunted him and practically spat on him. Then she went off somewhere. There was nothing the boy could do. He just burst into tears. That was when I realized his and Xiaohong's positions had been reversed completely. There was one other person besides me who saw the scene, Maomao. I just know she had something to do with this. Early spring, clear skies. I headed off to the farming villages with one thought in mind this year. I'm going to get them to grow some decent wheat. I'll see to it that they tread the crop and till the soil. It won't be a repeat of last year. There won't be any lackadaisical growing practices on my watch. Things seem pretty busy at the main house too, probably something to do with the new year. There's no end of work for politicians, but that's no concern of mine. I've got farming to do, cold afoot, cloudy skies. When I got back to the mansion in the Western capital, there was nobody there. Just a second, what's going on here? Somebody, anybody, Moon Prince, Maomao, Miss Chu. Friendly old doctor, Lihaku, Uncle Lakan, what in the world is this? Don't leave me here. The thick stack of papers turned out to be somebody's diary. One of the people from the central region must have forgotten it when he went back home. It was discovered at the inn town, at the inn where its author had supposedly waited for his ship. A great many names appeared in the diary, but the name of its author was nowhere to be found. Nobody knew whom to return it to. However, the extensive notes on farming methods and cultivation showed the writer was obviously a professional farmer. Further, if the book's contents were to be believed, this person was also quite important within the court hierarchy. They were important enough to directly summon a member of the royal family. However, when the inn owner sent the diary to the capital, they were informed there were no farming specialists among the most important bureaucrats. There had been such a person at one point, but he had long ago returned to the royal capital. There was no way he would have forgotten his diary at the inn. At a loss for what else to do, the innkeeper left the book with the gardeners. These men trod the wheat of their gardens with dead looks in their eyes. Strangely, the gardens of the Western leader, once regarded as the finest in Isay province, had been turned into wheat fields for some reason. Later, the diary would be edited into a manual of farming techniques, but its author remained unknown. The gardeners passed the book among themselves and laughed. This was their small measure of revenge against the interlopers from the central region, at whose hands their gardens had suffered so much. Eventually, the eye of some scholar lighted upon the diary, and this is the result. Chapter 9: NN's Day Off. The doctors, as a rule, got 1 day off every 10, although that could slide a little depending on whether it was the busy season or not. It was the same for NN and the other medical assistants. However, there was a problem with this system, a very serious one for NN. Why is my mistress working today and I am not? It's a rotating system. That's how it works, Maomao said, already tired of this conversation. But I would happily go to work today. Doctor, you said no. I think that's the end of the matter. Whose side are you on, Maomao? You just get so fired up whenever Yao is involved in anything, NN. Anyway, why did you call me here? Was it just so you could complain? Maomao gave NN an unimpressed look. They were in the annex at Lahan's home in the room that Yao and NN were currently borrowing. NN had called Maomao here since they happened to have the same day off. Or more precisely, NN had dragged Maomao out of the dormitory first thing in the morning. I'm not eager to be in this house any longer than I have to be, Maomao informed her. Also, I have business to take care of this afternoon, so I will be leaving before then. Maomao did not look comfortable here. She was Lahan's illegitimate daughter, but she herself didn't seem to want to admit it. She received many letters urging her to come visit, but she always ignored them and frequently used them for kindling in the oven. Oh, don't worry. Master Lahan has a conference this morning that he cannot get out of. His aides are going to drag him there by hook or by crook, so we won't see him again until this evening. Why are you so familiar with that freak's schedule? Because I have established decent relationships with the servants around here. Otherwise, she and Yao would have been chased out of the estate long ago. Maomao nibbled on a tea-flavoured rice cracker, annoyed. NN knew that Maomao liked salty things better than sweets and enjoyed a good crunch. Similarly, she didn't like refined, expensive tea leaves as much as commoner's tea with its inconsistent and unpredictable flavour. NN further knew that Maomao didn't eat as much as most people, but she was particular about taste. So if it wasn't just to complain, why did you call me here? Maomao asked, leaning back in her chair and crossing her legs. If she had done that in front of Yao, Maomao knew NN would have had some stern words for her. But since her mistress was absent today, Maomao would take the liberty of sitting how she pleased. It was the least she could ask, having allowed NN to drag her out here. I know you've got a sharp intuition, Maomao. I'll bet you can guess. Well, you specifically brought me here when Yao isn't around, so I assume it has to do with her. And I assume it has to do with the fact that you cleared out of the dorms and came to live in this freak's house. You're just as perceptive as I'd hoped. NN took a sip of tea. It was surprisingly good for the price, and she'd steeped it gently so it was fragrant. I want you to save my mistress from the evil hand of Master Lahan. Maomao didn't say anything. Instead, she scowled and then her mouth fell open. What kind of look is that? NN asked. Oh, it's nothing. That look was definitely something, but NN knew it wouldn't be any use pressing the point. Being a grown-up meant choosing not to pursue something you already understood. My point is, my mistress is still very young. I am sure Master Lahan must be leading her on somehow. Oh yes, what is with the distant look in your eyes? There is no distant look in my eyes, Maomao said, but she did not sound very convincing. There was no emotion in her tone. If you say so, NN grumbled. Maomao might not be very interested in the subject, but as Lahan's little sister, NN thought she ought to take some responsibility. NN had regrets. She had been sure that Lahan was only interested in older widows. He was tousle-haired and had fox-like eyes. It was not that he was unbearable to look at, but it was hard to call him handsome. Above all, he was shorter than Yao. That is not very nice to say, even if it is true, Maomao said. Apparently the voice of NN's heart had slipped out and reached her. What does my mistress see in a man like him? Yao is the one who wants to stay here, and she is inventing reasons not to leave. UNN would love to get out of here and put some distance between you and Lahan, but you cannot go against your precious Yao. That is why you want me to do something. Well, yes, Maomao's face made it clear that she did not think much of this idea. Then again, that was how she looked about most ideas. My mistress is so young still, I'm sure she's just confused. Oh, no doubt. Otherwise such a shrimpy, tousle-haired, fox-eyed little man would never you're saying it out loud again. NN clenched her fist. Maomao seemed to have some thoughts on the matter. What is it? You have a problem? NN asked. No, confused Yao might be, but I've started to realize that she's not the kind to be too concerned about outward appearances. Of course not, she's my mistress. She would never be so shallow as to judge people on their looks. Maomao didn't say anything but gave NN a skeptical look. What? Why are you staring at me? Said NN. Oh, it's nothing. That would imply Yao is seeing what's inside Lahan, and that's what's causing this confusion. Know that couldn't possibly happen, or so NN wanted to believe. What's inside Lahan is trash, Maomao said in annoyance. I have to admit I don't know what she could see in him either. I know, right, I agree completely. He's the most awful person. He tried to chase us out of his house because he claimed it wasn't good for two unmarried young women to be living there. But you don't want to stay here, do you? You want to get out of here in a hurry, right? And that's what you're asking me about, isn't it? Maomao said, oddly emphasizing certain words. NN found it distinctly annoying. Maomao, seriously, what's with the look? Nothing. I was just thinking that when it comes to your young mistress, you won't let a little logical inconsistency stop you. Why should I? The world revolves around my mistress. Everything and everyone in the world revolves around her, the way the heavens turn around the 7 stars in the sky. NN thrust her hands upward as she spoke. NN, please don't say things like that at court. You're going to get us executed for disrespect. This despite the fact that in NN's opinion Maomao was far more disrespectful than she ever was. Huh, what's inside Lahan, huh? I have to say I don't think much of the way he's constantly appraising everyone he meets. Maomao was still munching away on the rice crackers. NN was an adult, so the rejoinder aren't you exactly the same, Maomao, never made it past her throat. I do wonder what Yao would be drawn to in him. That's what I'd like to know. Can't you think of anything, Maomao? This is just imagination on my part, but I think Lahan has a clear grasp of general standards, as well as a very firm idea of his own preferences. Maybe Yao, who's never been a fan of stereotypical woman's happiness, finds that novel and exciting, so he's got his own unique standards. I guess I could understand, in that he doesn't look at gender differences but purely at practical ability. The La clan is full of people like that, folks like you and Master Lakan. Maomao bristled. I'm not like that, and would you kindly not speak that freak's name in front of me? Surely I can at least say his name. Don't you feel like if you say it he might suddenly appear behind you? Okay, yeah, I can see that. NN had experienced it more than once herself. When there was talk that Lakan found interesting, he would just suddenly show up. So he judges people by their abilities, without considering whether they're supposedly important, or their length of service, or even whether they're male or female. In a way you could say he's almost Yao's ideal man, said Maomao. Ideal? Absolutely not, NN said, veritably shaking as she rebuffed the idea. There are lots of fine gentlemen so much more suited to my mistress. To suggest that Master Lakan is her ideal, that's not the ideal I'm talking about. But anyway, does this mean that you do have it in mind to see Yao married, NN? Yes, she should have a husband. As long as he meets my standards. I don't think that's going to happen in this lifetime, Maomao said. She looked exasperated and gave a very theatrical sigh. It could too. NN was about to detail to Maomao her ideal husband for Yao when there was a knock at the door. Yes, who is it? NN asked. Maomao hid in the shadows, alert to the possibility that it might be Lakan. Please pardon me, said a voice. It wasn't Lakan, but a boy whose voice had yet to change. Siphon, the 4th child, entered the room. He was one of the kids who worked at Lakan's estate, and he was very clever. Lakan didn't accept rent, so NN gave money to Siphon instead. There was no risk of him embezzling. He knew it would be idiotic to try to skim some off the top. Lakan would find out and chase him out of the house. What do you need? NN asked. I've got company, I'm sorry, I realize that. However, I thought a moment when Lady Yao was out of the house would be a good time to speak to you. It has to be when my mistress is away. What do you mean? Samphon wishes to meet with you, Lady NN. NN swallowed heavily. All right. Well, it looks like you've got things to do. Maomao, sensing the perfect opportunity to escape, grabbed one more rice cracker. NN clutched her wrist. Come with me, won't you, Maomao? I couldn't, I'd only be a third wheel. Samphon said it would be no problem. In fact, she says she's tried to summon you repeatedly by letter, said Siphon. Maomao looked away pointedly. Please tell her that Enen and Maomao will both come to see her. Enen smiled sweetly, while Maomao drew her lips back in a grimace. Chapter 10. Enen and the Love Chat. Maomao and Enen were shown to Samphan's room, which was quite large for a servant's quarters. As far as Enen could tell, in Lachan's household there were ordinary servants and not so ordinary servants. The ordinary servants had mostly been brought in by Lachan. The not-so-ordinary ones were people Lachan himself had accumulated from here, there and everywhere. The man known as the strategist was perfectly average in terms of his looks and physical abilities. Perhaps he was even a bit below average, it was safe to say. He was of medium height and build and had eyes like a fox's. He also had an unpleasant grin. The only really distinctive thing about him was the foreign monocle that he wore. Officially he was a soldier, but he lacked any muscle to speak of. He also did not have much stamina. He could not hold his liquor, and he could barely survive a trip on any kind of moving vehicle. Apparently he had spent time in Isay province long ago, and he could at least ride a horse. He seemed every inch a useless lout who had gotten his position purely thanks to his bloodline. At least that was what people had thought of him until a little over 10 years ago. Lachan had, for some reason, taken the family headship from his father and become the leader of the La clan. After that, opinions of him changed completely. Lachan himself was a dullard when alone, but he excelled at making use of other people. Nobody was a better overseer of people than he was. Lachan could see a person's qualities and talents at a glance, and he could also see straight through people's lies. He would draw out those who were not blessed with excellent superiors and curry favor with them. He would destroy hostile forces from within. Those who opposed him found themselves exiled if they were lucky, and executed if they weren't. At present, no one in the court dared to stand against him. The servants brought in by such a man were never ordinary, and Samphan, who had joined Lachan about 5 years ago, was one of them. She was a little short for a man but a bit tall for a woman about the same height as Yao. She was a woman but she typically wore male attire. Lady Maomao Enen, you must excuse me for summoning you, Samphan said with the slightest of smiles on her handsome face. What do you want with us? Maomao asked, sounding very annoyed. I simply wanted to welcome our honoured guests and we can do without the play acting. Could you do us a favour and get to the point? Enen broke in, cutting to the chase. Maomao nodded vigorously. She had been about to say the same thing. Cleverly, Samphan had put out tea and rice crackers. She too knew Maomao's preferences, it seemed. Very well, let me be direct. Samphan looked at Enen. This is about your Yao. My Yao? Well, aren't we feeling very familiar? Enen wasn't about to put up with hearing Samphan refer to Yao like that. Are you suggesting that because she is Vice Minister Lu's niece, I should refer to her as the young mistress? From my investigations, I know that Yao dislikes benefiting from her uncle's fame. If you consider her on her own merits, she is simply another lady of the court, isn't she? Is she truly so distinguished that I should give her a title of honour? That slight smile appeared on Samphan's face again, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. No matter how you looked at it, those were fighting words. Just as Enen had observed Samphan, Samphan had also studied Enen and Yao. She must have researched Maomao's background as well, because the tea snacks were crunchy, salty rice crackers, exactly the kind Maomao liked. She munched happily on them. Are you trying to start something? Enen demanded. Nothing of the sort. I only called you here because I thought talking might be to our mutual benefit. And how is that? It's your mutual benefit, so this doesn't involve me, right? Can I go home? Maomao asked, looking for any excuse to leave, but Enen grabbed her wrist again. Samphan. What is this mutual benefit, exactly? I'm glad you asked. It's my opinion that nobody stands to gain from you and Yao staying at this house any longer. I urge you to go somewhere else, and as it happens, I've found the perfect place. My understanding is that you've long since vacated your dormitory, is that correct? Samphan took out a piece of paper on which blueprints were drawn. The place was bigger than the room Enen and Yao occupied now. There were more ovens in the kitchen, and a well nearby. This residence is in a nice, safe area near the market. It's close to your place of employment, and believe it or not, the rent is only the number of fingers she held up certainly represented an excellent deal. It wasn't Enen but Maomao whose eyes started to shine and whose fingers flexed excitedly. Think of the medicines I could make with all that space. The dormitory was not suited to the processing of medicinal herbs. I grant it seems like a good place, Enen said. Doesn't it, though? How about it? You could move in immediately. Much as I would love to jump at the chance, I have a question. What is so bad about us staying right where we are? Well, aren't we suspicious? I'm only suggesting that people may look askance at a young lady of fine breeding taking up residence in a man's house for so long. I take your point. Coming from anyone else, I would assume you suggested this idea out of concern for Lady Yao. NN stared hard at Sanfan. Maomao frowned, her brow knitting, and she nudged her companion. NN, she whispered. Yes, Maomao, what is it? NN whispered back. Maybe you should just go ahead and take her suggestion. It is an excellent place. I do not think she is trying to con you. What do you not like about it? What do I not like? Why don't we start with the distinct sense that Sanfan looks down on my mistress? Sanfan certainly felt no special affection for Yao, that much was obvious in her attitude, and NN did not like it. Oh, please.